Welcome to episode 13 of this Leadership in Conservation series. In this episode, we will explore motivation. Keeping yourself and your team motivated is essential for success in any organization, including conservation. Understanding motivation is more than just knowing what drives people. It's about creating an environment where individuals feel engaged, valued, and inspired to perform. Leading you through this topic is Mr. Chris Murray. Chris is a seasoned leader with deep expertise in organizational behavior, leadership development, and employee engagement. He has spent many years helping organizations cultivate positive work environments that encourage productivity and long-term commitment. Chris will provide you with valuable insight into what truly motivates people, the difference between internal and external motivation, and how leaders can create conditions for sustained team motivation. After watching this video, you will understand what motivation is and why it matters in leadership. You will learn the difference between internal and external motivation, and discover practical strategies to keep yourself and your team motivated in the workplace. Now, let's listen to Chris.
If you watch this, you will have an understanding that motivating staff is an ongoing process. Know the symptoms of people who are demotivated, have an understanding of the difference between internal and external motivation, and have some guidelines how to keep your team motivated. To start the discussion, I just want to share with you that I have seen many a job description in various organizations and companies, even in various countries. One of the key performance areas very often referred towards leadership is that the role of the leader is to keep staff inspired and motivated. That's indicated to me that the motivation of staff all over is a primary role of leaders and management. It is my experience that motivating others is not a simple matter, as it depends on the interaction of the person or persons that needs motivation, as well as the motivator, the supervisor, whose task it is to motivate the others. As example, it is quite challenging to motivate somebody who is internally demotivated, somebody who does not want to do what you are suggesting. On the other hand, the supervisors themselves are sometimes not of the right mindset to motivate people. Successful motivational interventions rely on a strong rapport between the leader and the team. It is an ongoing process and not just a once-off, like pull yourself together, and building relationships is key to motivation. I now want to share with you some of the typical behavior of people who are demotivated. I call it the symptoms of demotivation. The reality is that staff do not always come to you and say that they are demotivated. Having a one-on-one discussion during a merit appraisal could come to a point where somebody would admit that they are demotivated. Or when you are honestly involved with one of the members of staff, they might reveal that they do not feel strongly motivated. Mostly people do not say it. You would not know whether the staff are deeply motivated or not, except if you understand the typical behavior of demotivation. So how would you know if your staff or person is not motivated? Firstly, one of the most common behavioral patterns of demotivated people is that they drag their feet. And as a result, there's a lot of time wasting, and they do not have a sense of urgency to get things done. This attitude of disinterest signals that something is wrong and most likely stems from a lack of motivation. A second symptom is disengagement or withdrawal. Disengagement isn't always clear-cut. Sometimes it's very subtle. People would withdraw in a subtle way, like they will keep themselves busy with their phones or computers while in meetings, or switch off the screen during virtual meetings, doing their social media behind the scenes. Then there is a third symptom called absenteeism. This means that very often employees typically would show disinterest and come late for work on a regular basis, always with a good excuse, of course. They might even stay away from work by taking sick leave on a regular basis. I once heard one colleague saying to the other, "I take the maximum sick leave I can, simply because I don't like to be here." We should, however, remember that sometimes there are real problems and we should engage with such employees. Ongoing absenteeism is often due to demotivation. A fourth and rather worrying level of demotivation is employees who become obstructive and openly show their disinterest, always opposing their colleagues and supervisors. They tend to play other employees down, and specifically management. And in worst cases, they would even deliberately disrupt ongoing processes. I once had such a colleague who would always throw the rule book at us. The moment we wanted to move forward, this colleague would say, "No, this rule says this," or "that rule says that." And when we fix it, then there's another rule. That is just a way of being very obstructive in the process and a very clear signal of demotivation. In summary, these are typical symptoms of demotivation, which should trigger our alarm bells. Okay, now that we've looked at the symptoms of demotivation, the question is, what is motivation and what typically motivates people? Let's consider an athlete who, for instance, runs the 100-meter hurdles. There are internal motivators that make this athlete run as fast as he or she could. Internally, the person feels, "I would like to break a record. I would like to do it under a certain time. I would like to succeed or come first." That internal driven motivation is what keeps him or her going and achieve their objectives. On the other side, there are also external factors that impact their performance. If you are such an athlete and you discover that it's raining or things are running late, those factors can also play a role on how you want to perform on that day. So this internal and external drive is the thing that drives you to jump over the hurdles to eventually get to a point of achieving your goals. Motivation is the energy and reasons that determines my actions, my efforts, and my perseverance in achieving something, whether personal or professional. As motivation is internally and externally driven, leaders should know the following about motivation. Different things motivate different people. One person may be motivated by public acknowledgement, where the other would prefer to get a few days' leave. Some are bonus-driven, where others might aspire for promotion. The point is that we should be aware of people's motivational differences, which one can only pick up if you have a true understanding of the individual driving forces of your team members. As example, I would like to refer to typical team building events. Coming from a conservation organization, I've many times seen team building events built around obstacle courses. People like to go out there, play around, go through these obstacle courses, and they find it motivational. However, there could be one person, let's say a lady who works in the finance department, who's a serious conservationist by heart, but she herself does not like these obstacle courses. She does not enjoy this activity. On the one side, it motivates a lot of the staff, but on the other side, that could actually be a demotivator for her. Leaders should also know what intrinsic motivations has to do with a person's internal drive. These motivational factors are more focused on the personal, social, and psychological needs. When you are intrinsically motivated, you are self-motivated to do things because it is internally enjoyable, interesting, or fulfilling. The satisfaction comes from the activity itself and not primarily from any external reward. The role of the leaders is therefore to assist the person in achieving things of value to her or him. It is about creating an environment where employees feel empowered, valued, and aligned with the company goals. Leaders could, for instance, promote opportunities for personal growth, recognize employees' efforts which will give them a sense of purpose. Flowers will grow and flourish when the conditions are right, with sunlight, proper care, and time. As a leader, you can provide the right environment, support, and encourage your team. Motivation, like growth, happens naturally within a positive and favorable atmosphere. This helps employees to stay motivated from within, which will result in higher job satisfaction, better productivity, and long-term engagement. Leaders create the right conditions for the staff and teams to stay self-motivated. On the other hand, you should also know what the extrinsic or external motivators are. Extrinsic motivators are external factors which comes from outside myself that could influence behavior such as financial rewards, promotions, recognition, and job security. These motivators encourage individuals to perform tasks in exchange for benefits or rewards. However, extrinsic motivators are not always effective in the long term. Let's use the example of salary. People expect to earn a salary, and earning a salary motivates them to take up a certain position. But let's say due to economic reasons, there's no salary increase. The salary now becomes a demotivator. On the short term, extrinsic factors will keep people going as long as they are relatively satisfied with their rewards. But long term, it is less of a motivator than intrinsic factors. By now it is clear that there is no single way to keep people motivated, and each person is differently wired. Thus, what applies to the one does not necessarily apply to the other. There are a number of golden rules to motivate teams which are worth mentioning. The first is goal setting. It is proven that when people have clear goals that positively challenge them and they are committed to the cause, they find enough self-motivation or intrinsic motivation to achieve optimally. In a team, this is also called alignment. As people move in the same direction, they feel themselves aligned with their colleagues, being part of a team. The second golden rule is to pay attention to the psychological needs of your team. I want to encourage you to read about the experiment conducted in the 1930s at the Western Electric Hawthorne Works in Chicago. The study aimed to determine how working conditions, like light, affect employees' productivity. Interestingly, the results showed that workers' performance improved not due to the change of lighting, but because they were being observed and as factory workers they felt valued. This became known as the Hawthorne effect, emphasizing the significance of attention and recognition in motivating workers. The study highlighted that workplace behavior is influenced by the fulfillment of people's psychological and social needs. One should not hesitate to announce the success of the team or individuals in the team and acknowledge their achievements. It is important, though, that there should be clear criteria in measuring such success. Leaders should also keep in mind that performance appraisals are not there just to reprimand but to encourage, support, and praise the people. Also, financial incentives do play a role in motivation, no doubt. But what we should not forget is that the primary factor is how people feel about this. The psychological effect it's got on the individual will last much longer than the monetary compensation. Motivation is not a simplistic matter. It takes a lot of dedication from the leader to stay motivated in support of the motivation of others. Are you motivated to motivate others?
So motivation is the driving force behind effort, perseverance, and success, both personally and professionally. Effective leaders understand that different people are motivated in different ways. Some thrive in recognition, others on financial incentives, career growth, or personal fulfillment. In summary, internal motivation comes from within and is driven by passion, purpose, and a sense of fulfillment, while external motivation relies on the external rewards like bonuses, promotion, and job security, but may not always sustain long-term engagement. Hence, leaders play a crucial role in creating an environment where employees feel empowered, valued, and aligned with company goals. By applying these insights, you will be better equipped to foster a motivated, high-performing team that remains engaged and committed to conservation efforts. Next up is episode 14, which dives into the basic principles of project management. Join us as we explore how a simple tool helps us plan and execute any project or activity.